Michael. Do I look in the camera? Or?
You can look at me.
Okay.
Yeah. Or look, I mean, it doesn't matter which part. If you want to be dramatic, you can say hello. But it's for the most part just conversation.
All right, cool.
So, Michael, where are you originally from?
From Chicago, Illinois. Yeah, I was born there. Yeah.
Wow. When did you come here?
Oh, when I was a baby. So basically, like, well, kid, baby, you know, stuff like that. So yeah, that's how I was adopted, pretty much. My birth mother was considered unfit, and then my dad too was considered unfit. So then my grandma and then my aunt on my dad's side decided to fly down to Chicago, come and get me, and then pretty much adopt me at that point. Wasn't fully adopted until I was probably in the third grade, because it's a long process, especially when it's interracial adopting, because my dad is half white, but his sister and his mom are white. So it's I guess it's weird, because like a lot of people think it's easy, but it's not. When a white person's adopting a black person, they actually do a lot of screening. So pretty much, like, they don't think that, like, while you're a kid, they don't think that when you're a baby, I guess, they don't think that you're gonna know that any harm is being done to you, right? So what they do is they pretty much give you that relationship with the kid and blah, blah, blah. But when he becomes more coherent, well, I guess you would say kindergarten and first grade, that's when they start doing the interviews. That's when they start doing like more court proceedings and stuff like that. So it was like a lot of interviews with the judges and lawyers and stuff like that. That's actually how I got my name changed legally.
Wow.
Yeah, because in the third grade, I guess this is when I was finally officially adopted. I told the judge that I wanted my name changed. Because I was originally, yeah. Well, I was very smart, I guess you could say, because I was already in magnet school. So basically, my birth name is Conley Francis Mims Jr., named after my dad. But I knew my dad was like kind of still in my life up until maybe, I want to say first grade, because my grandma would have him, you know, like visit and stuff like that. And my grandma at first like didn't want to have us fully adopted, because she thought she can get her son. You know, my dad was my grandma's favorite. If, like, all my aunts and uncles tell you that, like, my dad was the favorite, right? So she didn't want me to be fully adopted yet until she could figure out if he can get his life together and, you know, get off the drugs and stuff like that, right? So it just didn't happen that way. And then my dad just kind of disappeared out of my life after the first grade. So then I kind of wanted to get my name changed, because I was like, I don't want to be named after him. Right. So my aunt, who I call my mom, let me choose my name, and I chose Michael.
Wow.
At the time, like every person that I was like favorited towards was named Michael. Michael Jordan, I had his jersey. Let's see, Michael J. Fox was like one of my favorite actors, because I loved Back to the Future. I even got to act as Michael J. Fox at Universal Studios. Do you remember the Universal Studios, right? There was Back to the Future?
I think so.
So you remember how they used to pull a kid from the studio to play Michael J. Fox? So I jumped up and down and raised my hand, and they chose me to play him. And then I ended up playing him like on they give you like this little line and stuff, and I got to play him. And then they put you in the front of the ride and everything, you know. So yeah, so I got to play him, and then so that was kind of cool. And then Michael Johnson, he was like a track athlete, and I don't know if you recall in the Olympics, he had just kind of broken every running record, right, in the 90s, and he was like kind of like the face of the track Olympics in the 90s, right? So the first thing he did when he won his last gold medal was wrap it around his son, and that kind of stuck with me. At the time, like, I knew about Michael Jackson, but I just knew from the Thriller video I saw on Halloween. So then that was cool to me. So then I just chose Michael.
That's crazy.
Yeah. But
Especially
my grandma made me
young.
keep my first name as my middle name, so it became Michael Conley Mims. Conley is like an Irish name, I think. That's what I think. Because my grandma is Irish.
I see.
So, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm like fascinated that you had such a sense of self. I think at such a young age, you were like, I'm seeing.
I was already reading chapter books in the 3rd grade. I was already reading Harry Potter.
Wow.
Yeah.
3rd grade, I was like just.
Yeah. Actually, my entire elementary school was hooked on Harry Potter books.
Really?
Yeah, so like we had this thing at the end of the year called this, I think it was called the Park Western, like end of the year book, right? And people could write like a short paragraph of what their favorite book was or what was their favorite thing in school. If you would read that thing, everyone was talking about Harry Potter. So we were all hooked on Harry Potter as a school, right? And then when we heard about the movies coming out, all of us had already read the first 4 books. Book 5 and 6 and 7 hadn't even come out yet. So when we heard about the movies, like our entire school was hooked, right? I had literally broken my thumb in 3 places when my school was taking a trip to go see the movie, and I wasn't able to make it. And I guess they were going to go to the premiere, and my mom ended up said, you know, all right, cool, we're just going to go see the movie anyway. So I go to the hospital, get my thumb, like, it was crazy. I don't know how they fix broken bones today, but I remember them having to break the thumb back, because I broke it in 3 places. So they had to, I had to hear the cracking as they were breaking it back. Yeah, that was the most craziest thing ever. And yeah, so I broke it in 3 places, but we ended up going to go see the first movie. I wanted to fly to London to go actually to really, like, I think they were doing like an open casting, and they had asked everyone who bought the book got like a letter in the mail saying if you wanted to come to open casting.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's how they did it. I don't know if you've ever seen the biopic on it, and they had the open casting was all Harry Potter fans.
Wow.
Yeah, that's how they picked the actors. Yeah, it's on HBO Max. That thing was great. So that's how they picked the actors.
Wow.
Every actor was a fan. They had already read the books 2 times over.
That's pretty wild.
And so, which is crazy how Harry became Harry, is the fact that he was a fan first and then got to play. So same thing with Hermione. Yeah, that's why they were so good in the movies, because they were actually fans.
Already fans.
Yeah. And then yeah. I think that's the most unique casting way ever, because none of them were actors. They were all just kids.
Super fans already.
Yeah, super
like,
fans.
I like this already.
Yeah.
They were young too.
Yeah, hello.
Starting
Yeah.
out.
But I wanted to do that, but of course, you know,
Yeah.
who's flying to London for a casting?
Yeah.
I really wanted to. That would have been dope.
Man.
But yeah, so that ended up happening. And then so I officially got adopted, like I think I was in the 3rd grade. Everything was cool and everything. And then I think I was, what happened? I was 13 years old, right? So I was in 7th grade when this one happened. So we moved in, and we had like kind of like a messed up neighbor, like a borderline racist neighbor, right? And would always kind of like call the cops on my mom because he just didn't like the fact that she was white raising like black kids. And one time the cops actually took it seriously, and so when we got for a whole year, we got put in foster care, me and my brother. So and it was crazy, like being adopted. I'm like, what the fuck? Why am I in foster care? I was already adopted, and yeah. So it was crazy, you know, because the cops were asking us these questions and stuff like that, and I didn't, you know, when you're a kid, you're truthful. So they're like, you know, I'm like, yeah, I love my mom. She's cool, does everything right. And then they asked us like if we ever gotten like whooped. And I didn't know that, like, California had just passed a law that there was no whoopings. But it's not like we ever had marks from whoopings.
Yeah.
It was just like, you get whooped.
Get a spank.
Yeah, like, that's normal, right? And because I knew other kids that were getting whooped, and I was like, yeah, it's normal. A lot of my friends get whooped, right? And then they opened like an investigation on it, and then they put us in foster care for a whole year. So then my mom had to go to these classes for a whole year to say that child abuse is bad or blah blah. She didn't get labeled as a child abuser, thank God. But we realized that we were going. That's when PC culture, I guess, was starting.
Right.
And we didn't even know that had become a law in California, that you're not allowed to give spankings or anything like that. And so we got put in foster care for a year, and I learned what foster care system was really like. And there, it was super bad. I think the first day I went into the foster home, I got into a fight with someone because they had taken one of my shirts, right? And so I got into a fist fight first day, and then I realized that this was what it was going to be. Like, fighting was like a constant.
Wow.
Like in the foster.
The other kids that they had, sort of?
Yeah, so like I was in like a foster home. So there's different levels to it. Foster home, you're like in a house, in a neighborhood, stuff like that. But I got kicked out of the foster home because of fighting, right? And then from there I got moved to facility. So they put you in a facility if they think that you're like an endangerment to others because you're fighting or whatever. Because the first person I fought, like I think I broke his jaw or something like that. Because I'd been kickboxing already since I was 10.
Yeah.
So I didn't throw punches. I threw kicks first.
Yeah.
And so I threw a kick and I broke his jaw, and then they put me in a facility home. My brother was in a different foster home, so we were split up from the beginning. Yeah, it was crazy. He was put in a foster home in like LA or something like that. And then
and no way to contact him at that point.
It was weird. Like I got the number from my social worker. We had two different social workers. It was weird. Yeah. So I had to get the number from my social worker, and then my social worker would have to bring him to my facility. My facility was all the way in San Dimas. Yeah. So then I realized that and the facility was crazy because like a lot of those kids were like, it was fighting like every week. You probably would fight like every week just to prove that you're like not a chump. You know what I'm saying? So there was fighting every week, people stealing your stuff every week. It was crazy. So then one time, I remember this kid took the 8-ball out of the rec room and threw it at the staff. And the staff flipped, right?
Yeah.
And I was just coming out of my room when that happened, right? I was coming out of my room into the hallway, and he thought I did it. And he picks me up and throws me into a brick wall. And that's how I got my teeth chipped like that. So then they had to transfer me out. Yeah. So they transferred me out into a foster home after that happened because for obvious reasons. They were like, staff member threw him, and my mom was pissed, and it's like, why is he still even, why, you know what I'm saying? Like, why, and then, we had to go to these court every 2 months, and it's like, just to find out you can't go home yet. Just got to complete the program. Program takes a year. And then I was like, damn, this is stupid. And then, so I get put in a foster home in Chino Hills. And by the time I get back home, I'm like 14. Whole year has passed, you know what I'm saying?
That's like peak puberty years, too.
Yeah.
It's like a developmental period.
Yeah, and then by the time, and on top of that, like, my brother and me aren't even with each other. So, like, me and my brother were like two different people at that point. He's different than who I was. I'm different than who he was. So, like, having to get to know your brother, which was different and weird because the person I knew when we were kids became like a totally different person. And it was like almost like getting reintroduced to a stranger almost, which was crazy to me. Because like the visits weren't even frequent with my brother. It was maybe like once every 3 months, maybe 6. Like it was like, because I spent like a year, maybe a year and a half in a foster home. So that was kind of crazy. And then during that process, a lot of our information kind of got fumbled. So like Chicago is like the worst when it comes to getting your birth certificate, right? So this foster care system had lost my birth certificate, but they had never gotten it back. My mom always had a copy, so it was cool, like, but it was not a certified copy. So when I turned 18, my mom had already, by the time I was 16, my mom had got diagnosed with a terminal illness. So I already knew she was on her way out. But when the time I was 18, like, I was trying to get a job, I don't have an ID. And I couldn't get an ID with the birth certificate that I had.
Right.
So trying to get Chicago to get that shit to me was almost impossible. Because I didn't have an ID. Right. I had this copy of birth certificate that didn't work. I only had my social security card, that was it. My mom's passing away, so we can't fly to Chicago, you know what I'm saying? Because she can't handle a flight. It wouldn't work. Because she had a breathing machine. If the breathing machine malfunctions on the flight, that's her life, you know what I'm saying? So that wasn't working out. So I was working like under the table jobs when I was 18. And then I got thankful that like the gym that I used to train at hired me without my ID and everything. So I was working under the table. They had to pay me under the table there. Couldn't file taxes, you know what I'm saying? So I never filed from the time I was 18 to 19, pretty much 20. I never even filed taxes. You know, so I actually owe tax. I've been paying back taxes from those times because I made so much money from 18 to 20 without paying taxes that I had to go back and do all that all over. Yeah, because when you're an adult though and you're trying to buy a house or you're trying to buy a car, they look at that stuff like, wait, you owe the government from.
Wait a second.
Because those were, you're putting money in a bank account without having any form of tracing. So they're thinking like you're making all this money without taxes, So this organization called Living Advantage helped me out because by the time I was 19, my mom just passed away, and then so everything became harder, and so Living Advantage came in, and then they're a foster organization. They're non-profit, and they don't work with they're not necessarily with the government. So meaning that they can do things that normal foster care organizations can't do. So they keep kids past the age of 21. Yeah, past the age of 18 actually. They'll keep them at 21 because you're still a kid at 18. You know what I'm saying? So I was a kid. Even though I had my own place, I was still a kid. Yeah. Trying to figure out. No direction. No aunts and uncles really that are really there. You know what I'm saying? I have my cousins, but those cousins can't really help me in this situation. So, so Living Advantage helped me out. They got my birth certificate from Chicago somehow, some way. They did it through, they made a program that one of the people who kind of developed Uber helped them develop this program. It's like this life scan type program that helps you kind of certify your identity. So technically, even though I know who I am, Chicago doesn't know who I am, right? So they got my birth certificate from Chicago and was able to help me get my ID. And then they keep a file of my birth certificate in a vault for me, no matter what. Even though I have my own birth certificate, for the rest of my life, I know that Living Advantage has a vault for me because I'm a former foster youth. And they helped me get programs like a TAP card for 2 years. Because, when I was 18, 19, I didn't have a car. So I had a TAP card so that way I can go around the buses without having to pay. Because, struggling to pay your rent, bills, and then take the bus everywhere was it was a struggle. So a lot of people were looking at me oh, he's 19 with his own place, he's living large. But in reality, I wasn't really living that large. Everyone looked at it as you're living large, but I wasn't. I was damn, you don't even know. I'm over here eating a cup of noodles for a week. You know what I'm saying? Right. But then they helped me with that. So then I was able to get some food stamps. Finally, because I have an ID. I have my birth certificate to verify who I was. So now I could get food stamps to kind of help. And then, alleviate some of that. And then I was still going to college at the time. So then, I was realizing, college and work wasn't mixing. So then I ended up dropping out of college. And then, but now I am where I am today because of all that. Because, literally was able to go through the struggle and just come up off of that. So,
how did you get in contact with that organization?
So I still have my social worker, even though so like even when you're adopted, you still got your social worker and stuff. So my social worker was helping me out. My social worker was a former foster youth, so she was super dope. She helped me get in contact with that organization because she said, like, I'll be real with you. If I could keep trying, but I'm gonna be real. The government ain't shit. Like, you know, but I know this organization is gonna help you.
Yeah.
He said most social workers won't tell you this, or they don't even know about this organization, but I do because personally they helped me, and so I'm gonna have them help you. So then she got in contact with them, and they're like LA based foster organization. They're dope, but and I keep in contact with them still to this day. Yeah.
That's so important because I mean, I don't know, you hear a lot of these stories, and like you're saying, you know, once you reach a point of being 18 years old, you're kind of left out into the world and like, hey, go figure it out. And I'm sure a lot of people don't know about that organization, and just to hear that they were able to give you all of this stuff.
Yeah.
It's just not everybody's story, so it's a very beautiful thing to hear.
Yeah.
Especially with your mom passing, it's like that just, you know, it's rough.
Yeah, and then my brother had just gotten like locked up, you know, so it was like, because he spiraled during that whole time, like when our mom kind of got sick and then passed away, so he got locked up. So I was literally by myself trying to get all this stuff done. You know, my cousins were there, you know, they helped out and stuff like that, but it was still like, you know, I wouldn't even try to ask for too much because I was like, you know what, I don't want to have to owe people stuff. You know what I'm saying? I want to have to do this on my own, and that's the way I kind of did it. You know, but I'd be a fool to say that along the way, like, help came in like the most weirdest ways. Like, I had bosses who were super cool. Like, shout out to my first bosses like Tim and Tom, and then my boss Anthony. Like, those people are still my friends to this day. Because like even if I don't work for them now, they're like step stools. Like, you just remember every step stool you take to get to where you're at today, right? And so everyone plays like a part in your life to get to that step stool. So I mean, it was tough, you know. Like, even when I was like a teenager, when I first found out that my mom got like a terminal disease, I spiraled, and I ended up going in, like, you know. So like when you go to juvenile hall, they send you to a group home to rehabilitate. So I ended up going back to a group home at 16 for 6 months. So because I did something stupid, I got into a fight, and it ended up getting me time in juvenile hall for that. And then I ended up doing 6 months in a group home. I was like, damn, I just was in a group home. Now I'm back in it. You know? So like, yeah. So then I just realized, like, man, I gotta stop. Like why am I making excuses for the way my life is going, you know? And it's not even my life, it's my mom's life at that time. Right. So yeah, so then I was like, all right, let me get my stuff together and then, you know, move forward from that. But like, I wanted to get a job at 16 and really couldn't. But I was lucky that the gym I worked out at, you know, I've been at the same gym since I was 10 years old, you know, and I was like, they gave me a job under the table when I was 16. I was just sweeping up carpets, you know? So, yeah.
What gave you the strength kind of in those hard times to just like keep going and maybe even twist your path and change it so that you can get into a better position?
A lot of people won't tell you this, but I feel like it's hatred.
Really?
Yeah. Like, a lot, like, and I kid you not, like, a lot of foster kids won't tell you this. They'll give you like, oh, you know, I just wanted to prove people wrong. No. The real thing is hatred. Because, like, I hated my dad. I hated my birth mother, you know what I'm saying? Because they left me, you know what I'm saying? So the hatred, and then the fact that, like, I say hatred and love. I think it's like a 50-50 combo. Because the love of the person who chose me, chose to be my mom, and then the hatred from the people that abandoned me, you know? Because I do think about, you know, I'd be a fool to not think about it, but I think about, like, what would have happened if I had both parents? You know what I'm saying? Would I have come out this way? Or, you know, or would I have come out this way? Because then you'd have both people funding you and stuff. Versus, you know, my mom had already raised her own kids, and then now she's raising us, you know, by herself, and she, you know, she gets this terminal illness, so she can't work no more. You know, so it's a struggle. It's a struggle, you know. And so like when I needed football equipment, you know, to play football, she couldn't do that. You know, she didn't have enough money. I got thankful, like, you know, when the money got tight, when she got that terminal illness, you know, Tim and Tom gave me and my brother free gym memberships for the rest of our lives. You know what I'm saying? So that was kind of crazy to have like you know, people just come up and like they just like help you. Yeah. Shoot, our PlayStation 2 had broke and they bought us a PlayStation 2. Yeah, like, so we had like people in our lives that helped us out, and then that, it kind of gives like that father figure-ish around, you know what I'm saying? Like, so like, you know, and then my boss Anthony, when I was 19, like seeing him with his kids, you know, you kind of see that like, that people can be the right way. And so that hatred fuels you to be like, not like them. That hatred fuels you to be like, oh, I never want to be like my dad. I never want to put hands on a female like how he did. I never want to be on drugs like the type of drugs he was on, like that meth and stuff like that. I'll never do none of that. I never want to be like that. Or same thing with my birth mother. I don't want to be like that. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to be like them. So that hatred fuels you to be better than them. And then the love pushes you to keep going because, you know, my mom sacrificing her life, like, to raise us, you know, every day I think about that. So it fuels me to be the person who I am. It fuels me to strive better because all the promises I made to her, I still keep those because I still want to be able to say, like, when I get that mansion, be like, hey, even though my mom can't live with me in this mansion like I promised, there's still that, I'm going to have that room that's dedicated to her, and it'll be like she's in that mansion still, you know what I'm saying? So everything I said I would do, I may have not all the way have done those things yet, but I've accomplished probably, 6 out of the 10 promises so far. I got 4 more to go. I got to get married, I got to have kids, I got to get the mansion, and then I got to get the Corvette. Okay. Yeah, I got to get the Corvette because she wanted, like, her favorite car was a Corvette. So I got to get the Corvette, you know. So I didn't get it. I could have easily gotten the Corvette this year, but I was like, you know, with the gas prices, let me wait a little bit more money before I get that Corvette. But yeah. It just has to be a Corvette. If I go with a particular model, it probably costs me a lot more. I think that model is worth more than the real Corvette, the newer Corvettes at this point in time. But yeah, so it's like hatred and love fueled me to become like a good person and fueled me to be where I'm at. And you know, the craziest thing about being like in these situations too, like I just found out like, what was it, like a month ago, I have 10 brothers and sisters. Like I knew something about it, but we'd never spoken like to, we never knew anything about my birth mother's side, right? Like never knew anything about them at all. So we just found out, me and my brother found out because they found us on Facebook that we had 10 brothers and sisters. And they were in foster care organization. So, but they had it worse because, you know, Chicago's foster care is worse, 20 times worse than, like LA's is bad too. Like, don't get me wrong. Foster care organizations across the country are bad. But Chicago is a different story. Like, it's 20 times worse in Chicago. Like, you know, it's way worse. Some of those group homes are in the projects, you know, so it's a little bit different. So yeah, so we found that out, and then it's kind of crazy. So it's like, it's overwhelming because it's like, damn, I got 10 brothers and sisters. You know, I thought I was the oldest. This whole time I thought I was the oldest. I know I'm the oldest, so that's kind of crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Have you gotten to contact each one of them?
Yeah. So we're in contact with them. You know, like I wouldn't say like I haven't like talked to them every day or anything like that because it's still overwhelming to me because, you know, I'm 29 now, and to find out at 29 that you have 10 brothers and sisters is overwhelming. And it was the same month as my birthday. I just got back from London. My brother's birthday's coming up. She was crazy. So yeah, it's a lot. So, you know, I'm connecting with them. Me and my brother are connecting with them and stuff. But I still gotta live my life too. So
and there's a lot of life stories to keep up with at that point. So
yeah.
You know what? I think I'm gonna take it one at a time.
Take it day by day, and then when we meet and stuff like that. So that'll be kind of cool, you know.
So I guess on an ending note, I kind of wanted to see, in your perspective and the things that kind of you've experienced being through these different programs, what are some ways that you would suggest would be ways to improve them through your experiences?
I mean, I feel like a lot of people take those jobs in the foster care organization for the money. But I think they need to start weeding out those people because, you'll get staff members that don't really care about you. And, they can abuse you. They can put you in situations that you don't like. Like, we had one staff member in the group home who would, like, pin people up against each other in fights. Like, I didn't, like, when you're young, you don't really think that he was instigating. But now I know what instigating is and everything. You're like, damn. A lot of those fights was instigated by those guys. Like, they would instigate it. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'll be like, damn, they just love seeing that shit.
Right.
They love seeing us fight. Because, they wouldn't really break up the fights right away.
Crazy.
They let the fight go on and then break it up. So,
to get something that they want, whether it be a kid moved or something, they're like...
Yeah. Like, if they didn't like this one kid, they would literally put the kids up against you. So, I remember there was a staff member that didn't like me, and... he said that, because I was like, I've been a nerd my whole life, but I've been a nerd that could fight my whole life. So there's like a difference. Right. You know what I'm saying? So I've been 6 feet since I was in I always thought I was going to be 6'5", 6'6", but it turns out I was just 6 feet from the time I was in 7th grade to now. I only grew like an inch, so I'm 6'1". So I was just always tall. But there was this staff member that didn't like me because he said, you just think you're better than everybody else. He thought I was like this uppity black dude that thought I was better than everyone else. Because like when it came to school stuff, like I'd be like, I'd do my homework first. So like, let's say if there's an outing, right? The group homes have these outings. I would put my homework before the outings a lot of the time, right? Because it'd be outings that the kids would vote on. A lot of the kids would want to do stuff I didn't want to do, right? So I'm like, all right, I'd rather do my homework. And because I'd rather do my homework, one of the staff members would have to stay, right? And so the staff member would be pretty pissed because, the government funds these outings. So he'd be pissed that, he couldn't go on that outing with everybody else because maybe he wanted to do that too with the kid, so he'd be pissed. So I remember one time he put the kids up against me. So I remember it was 5 of the kids in this home, and I was fighting every one of them. I remember I had saved up my allowance, right? I put it in a sock because I know that some of these kids were stealing stuff. I put it in a sock, and I remember the staff member had seen me put it in a sock one time. And I remember the money go missing. And it was like, I think it was like $600, $700. I told myself I was saving all the money until I got out, and what I was going to do with the money, I want to take my mom and my brother out to dinner once I got out of the group home. And I lost all that money. He couldn't tell me where it was, and all the while I knew he had taken it. I was just pissed, and I remember I swung on him. I just swung on him. I got kicked out of that group home right after that. But it was like I told the person who was in charge of the group, I was like, look, I know for a fact he stole that money. I said he's the only one that's seen it. None of the kids. I made sure that none of the kids saw me hide this sock and everything. I said I put another sock around that sock so it looked like it's in a pair.
Right.
I said, you can't even tell. It's at the bottom of the sock drawer. Right. You can't tell. And I got kicked out of it and never got that money back.
Wow.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And instead of reprimanding the guy, they reprimanded you for it.
They reprimanded me. So that's like one change they got to make. Maybe take advice from like Living Advantage because whatever they're doing it right. And then I gotta say, like, it's not like they gotta be more understanding of like how the kids' perspective and some of this stuff. Like, I think the reason why a lot of us foster kids like Batman is because Batman. There's a part in Batman, and they said this in the only movie they've done this in is in the Christian Bale Batman movies, right? Where Robin, the guy who's playing Robin, is telling them about how he felt. He said how he was going from group home to group home because of his anger, because his hatred, right? His hatred towards his parents and stuff like that, right? He said, when he met Bruce Wayne, he realized, I was doing it wrong. He said, I was wearing the hate on my face, but when you came in with that big smile, billionaire orphan, he's like, I could see the hatred in there, but you were hiding it with this smile, right? And that's how you knew that Bruce Wayne was Batman. because the hatred was shown out with Batman, right? And he's like, you hid it well, so that way society won't put you in this zone. And then he said, once I started using that fake smile, it got me places. And then that's why we kind of love, like a lot of kids like gravitate towards Batman. I think it's mostly because of that. And I was always into comics and anime too, so I started wearing that fake smile, and it kind of worked, for a while. And then it's just balancing. You have to balance the hatred with the love. And the hatred, I don't think ever disappears. I don't think it ever disappears. I'd be lying to say, oh, I'm over everything. I'd be lying. But it's a balance. You got to balance the love with the hate and use the hate as fuel. And it takes some time to learn that. So I think that a lot of people need to, when they see these kids acting up, I was like, well, he's a foster kid. It's like, you don't know how hard it is to try to check your emotions. I said, some kids can do it well because maybe they're a little bit in tune earlier. I said, but some of them can't. And some of them, they don't know how to do it. Even when they become an adult, some of them don't even know how to do it. So I say, instead of always like, oh, try to see where the kid is coming from and try to help them balance out that hatred with love. And I think in the foster care organization, it's hard because they're not getting love from the staff. You know what I'm saying? They're not getting that genuine love from the staff. And so they can't really balance out that hatred. They're getting hatred with hatred because now they hate that staff, right? So now that they found another reason to hate, and now they're fueling hate. Their hatred just keeps going. Versus me, I got lucky that I had people in my life that loved me and wanted to see me do good. So I was able to balance out my hatred with love, and it overcame everything. So yeah, so it's tough. I'm not gonna lie. It's a day-to-day thing, balancing love and hate all the time, because you'll find yourself checking yourself to make sure you don't say the wrong things. Or even like in relationships, like I would say a lot of my past relationships failed because, when a girl would complain about something, I'd be like, you complain about that? Like, man, you don't even know what the half things I had to live with, you know what I'm saying? And so what you develop is like, you'll be like, you got to stop comparing what you go through to what other people go through, because not everyone's going to go through what you go through. And that's another thing that a lot of kids that grew up in the foster care organization, they don't know how to deal with as well. It's the fact that, hey, you can't ever compare what you go through to somebody else, because when you do that, you're gonna come off as someone who is what's the word I'm looking for? Someone who either, I wouldn't say thinks they're better themselves than other people. I would say that you're going to come off to other people as not sympathetic. Okay. And I would come off to that in my past relationships, as not sympathetic to what they're going through. Right. And I've apologized to damn near every one of my exes, because it took me to the point, I think I was 25, 26 years old when I realized that, dang, even though I'd already balanced everything else as far as work life, my personal life sometimes wasn't the best, because I was still comparing my struggles to their struggles. You know what I'm saying? I think that's why I'm best friends with one of my exes, because she saw that in me and was able to tell me, like, I'll never understand what you go through, but I don't think you know that what you're doing as far as comparing your struggles to mine, and that's why you're not sympathetic, and then that's why it doesn't come off as like real love or something like that. And I was like, damn. It's like, but sometimes you need someone to tell you that. Yeah, wake you up to that. You know what I'm saying? So, because I don't even think my mom saw that, because my mom even grew up in the struggle. Like, even people think that like all white people kind of grew up a certain way. It's like, no, my grandma came from Ireland, and she lived in an all-black neighborhood because she was Irish. So her kids, even though some of her kids, she had black kids and she had white kids. And the white kids had to go to all-black schools. And so my mom went to all-black school, lived in the hood, and all that stuff. So a lot of people think, so like if anyone that understood me more, it was her. So she never even knew that like, oh, I was struggling with that part as far as the sympathy part, because she grew up maybe as worse, if not worse than I did. So it was like it was no one to really kind of check me on that one. And then it wasn't until my ex checked me on that, and I was like, oh shit, okay. And then I fixed that. And I fixed that about myself, because I think as humans we got to realize that even when we become adults, we're not going to be perfect, and we got to still adapt. And I think I've become a person that I can adapt to any situation you throw me into now, because I'm able to listen and then go off of that. I won't just act without listening. You know what I'm saying? I won't do it, because when you do that, you can make the mistake of offending someone, or maybe coming off as the wrong way. And I try my best to listen before I speak. You know what I'm saying? Because I want to respect everyone's values. I want to respect where they're coming from before I do it. And it's not just listen, but to think before and understand. You know what I'm saying? So my message to a lot of foster kids out there is probably to, balance that hatred, balance the love, and then not just listen, but think. You gotta listen and think before you act, because not a lot of people understand what we go through, and the way you come off to somebody else might offend them, or it might get you in trouble. And I've been through the trouble, I've been through the offending stages, and I know what not to do and what to do. So that's a big part of it. Yeah. So it's crazy.
Thank you for swinging in.
Yeah, no worries.
This conversation, this was very, very good, very insightful, and I think it's important for people to understand kind of the backstory and how it can affect kids growing up, and then just kids, like you're saying, towards the end.
Yeah, because the stats are out there. 1 out of 10 kids end up in having being able to make it out of foster care organization, to having their own place, having their own car, job, without being in jail as an adult. I'm lucky to say I've never been in jail as an adult. You know what I'm saying? I beat the stats. You know what I'm saying? I beat the stats. I saw the stat and I said, that's not going to be me. You know what I'm saying? So I'm 1 out of 10. But the goal is to get that number to being 9 out of 10 kids, instead of it being 9 out of 10 kids who grew up in foster care or being adopted, end up in jail, dead, prison. You know what I'm saying? That stat it's a bad stat. And I think maybe it's because the programs aren't out there yet to help them, to get them, or they don't have the love yet. I think the love is the biggest part about it. You can give a kid a program, all the programs you want, but if he ain't feeling loved, it ain't gonna be there. How can he balance out the hate without no love? So yeah, it's tough.